They never saw you coming. The world underestimated your silence, mistook your patience for passivity, and dismissed your endurance as insignificance. But you were never just waiting. You were watching, calculating, mastering the art of the unseen. Every setback was a lesson, every betrayal a sharpening stone, and every doubt cast upon you only fueled the fire of your inevitable rise. You are not ordinary. You are not one of them. You were built differently, crafted in the quiet, strengthened in the shadows, refined through trials only the chosen can endure. They mocked your restraint, but they failed to understand that true power doesn't announce itself. It arrives when the time is right, when the moment is undeniable, when destiny itself bends in your favor. This is your moment. The tables have turned, the illusions have shattered, and the world will now witness what patience, resilience, and sheer will can create. They set the stage for their own downfall, but you were always meant to rise. Welcome to your miracle. It's time to claim it. Restraint is a silent art of mastery, where every paused moment becomes a mirror reflecting the flaws of those who rush. While they charge forward, assuming their path is clear, your stillness quietly orchestrates their downfall. The world overlooks the weight of deliberate waiting, mistaking it for hesitation. Yet, in the shadows of patience, there lies a force unseen, a slow, unyielding tide that reshapes the very land beneath it. As the impulsive falter, ensnared by their own haste, the patient find their strength in endurance. The subtle art of holding back is a craft, perfected by those who know that true power lies not in the first move, but in the last. The folly of those consumed by pride and impatience is a timeless warning. Their downfall is etched in their need to leap before looking. Triumph does not belong to the swift, but to the unwavering spirit that stands firm against the winds of urgency. Restraint is not a void. It is a firmament from which great storms gather strength. Quietly, it endures, while arrogance stumbles over its own feet. What is unseen is often underestimated, and therein lies the trap. They presumed your silence was submission, unaware of the latent force in your reserve. Every pause was a calculation, each breath a strategy. The unnoticed become the unstoppable, constructing inevitable fates while chaos consumes the unguarded. Your calm was a canvas upon which they painted their own ruin, blind to the slow advance of consequence. The silence became the weapon, each unspoken word a link in the chain of their undoing. Noise is a cloak for the unprepared. In quiet, you found the perfect alignment of time and action. They mistook your composure for inaction, never realizing that within the lull, you held the power to dismantle their pretenses. Stillness is a force wrapped in quietude, a whisper that can fell giants. It is the deep current beneath a placid surface, ready to surge without warning. Those who fail to see the energy within stillness are often caught off guard, ensnared by their miscalculations. True adaptability is not in meeting force with force, but in embracing fluidity, reshaping to fit every crevice and contour of challenge. The patient ones, like water, carve their path through stone, waiting for the precise moment when their seemingly gentle touch becomes an unstoppable wave. In the art of waiting, there is profound strength, one that bends without breaking and strikes with undeniable precision. The balance of all things is not dictated by impulse, but by precision. Control does not belong to the ones who shout the loudest or move the fastest. It belongs to those who understand the weight of patience, the gravity of timing. While they reveled in their illusions of superiority, mistaking their audacity for dominance, you remained still, watching. They wove their own downfall with every boast, every reckless step, unknowingly feeding the very force that would dismantle them. They never saw the storm brewing beneath the surface, nor did they realize that silence is not surrender, it is the crafting of inevitability. Their deception was transparent, their confidence a performance, and in their arrogance, they revealed more than they ever intended. The game was theirs to lose from the start. They just didn't know they were playing against themselves. Arrogance has a way of turning on those who wield it carelessly. They mistook their boldness for invincibility, failing to realize that recklessness is the first crack in the foundation of power. Their downfall wasn't a sudden strike. It was a slow unravelling, a collapse orchestrated by their own hands. Every step they took forward led them deeper into a web they couldn't see, one spun not by force, but by patience. They imagined themselves untouchable, yet every careless move, every misplaced word, only served to accelerate their descent. In the end, the reckoning was not a battle. It was a revelation. They were not outmatched. They were undone by their own inability to see what was right in front of them. Timing is a blade that only cuts when wielded with purpose. They believed themselves to be in control, but the clock was never ticking in their favor. It was counting down. The outcome was never about speed or brute force. It was about inevitability. The unseen hand of consequence was at work long before they even realized they were on borrowed time. Every decision they made, every false step, every attempt to seize control only tightened the snare. They mistook stillness for stagnation, never realizing that the longer they walked unchallenged, the closer they came to the fall. The moment wasn't random, nor was it rushed. It was measured, deliberate, inescapable. When the weight of it finally crashed upon them, there was no room for retreat, no space to bargain. The reckoning wasn't sudden, it was always waiting. For whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. A seed does not grow the moment it is planted, nor does the harvest come before its season. Yet in time, every seed must break through the soil, revealing the truth of what was sown. Some plant righteousness and reap abundance. Others, driven by arrogance, plant deceit and expect to harvest victory, never realizing that the ground itself remembers, that the roots of deception twist upon themselves, choking out the very success they sought to claim. They believed they had control, that their whispered schemes and secret dealings would bear fruit without consequence. They moved in shadows, crafting illusions, believing they were the architects of fate. But destiny does not belong to those who manipulate. It belongs to those who stand in alignment with something greater, something unshaken. The forces they ignored were never silent, only patient. And when the time came, it was not rage or wrath that met them, but justice, swift and undeniable. The very laws they dismissed moved against them, not out of vengeance, but out of the unyielding balance that governs all things. They built their tower on shifting sand, stacking lies like bricks, thinking their foundation was firm. But a house built without truth cannot stand when the winds of consequence rise. The cracks they refused to see spread beneath their feet, until, without warning, the ground beneath them gave way. They did not fall because you struck. They fell because their own weight was unsustainable. Every deception was a stone added to their own burden, every selfish act a rope tied tighter around their fate. They mistook patience for powerlessness, mistook your stillness for surrender. But the wise do not rush to interfere with a fall that was already written in the stars. The universe does not operate on human timelines. A tree does not bear fruit in winter, and no river flows before its source has been set. The appointed hour always comes, and when it does, there is no pleading, no bargaining, no escape. The consequences of their choices did not come as a punishment, but as a reflection, a mirror held up before them, revealing the undeniable truth of what they had done. And now, standing in the ruins of their own making, they realized too late they were never the masters of the game, never the authors of fate. They set the pieces in motion, but it was their own hands that ensured the ending. You did not have to act, because wisdom knows when to wait. You did not have to strike, because justice never forgets its own timing. You were patient, because patience is the weapon of those who understand that victory is not taken, it is inherited. And now, as they stare at the wreckage of their own design, there is no need for words. The truth has spoken, the harvest has come, and the reaping has begun. Legends across cultures whisper of rulers and conquerors who mistook their own power for permanence, only to be met with a force far greater than themselves. One such tale speaks of a sovereign who believed his reach limitless, that his will alone dictated the course of his empire. Yet it was not a rival army nor a treacherous foe that ended his reign. It was a force neither seen nor touched, a quiet correction of imbalance. He had taken without measure, built without respect, and so his foundations crumbled beneath him. In the moment of reckoning, there was no enemy to strike down, no battle to fight, only the realization that the weight of his own choices had closed in around him. What he dismissed as mere superstition had been a lesson he refused to learn. Power is only ever borrowed, and the cycle ensures its return to balance. They built their dominion on the illusion of invincibility. Yet the moment the foundation was tested, it crumbled beneath them. The unravelling wasn't sudden. It was a slow fracture that they refused to acknowledge until it was beyond repair. Their confidence, once an unshakable tower, eroded with every misstep, every arrogant assumption, every blind act of overreach. They believed they held the reins, that their schemes were impenetrable. But each calculated move was a thread pulling apart the fabric of their own undoing. When the truth came crashing down, it wasn't an external force that shattered their grip. It was the weight of their own reckless ambition. They weren't outmaneuvered. They were exposed. Every falsehood, every deception, every betrayal had compounded, growing into a force they could neither control nor escape. The outcome was inevitable. They had mistaken patience for weakness and silence for inaction. But the reckoning came not from opposition, it came from within. The very hands that wove their ascent sealed their downfall. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you are meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. Throughout history, those who sought absolute control have always met the same fate, a collapse of their own making. A ruler once sought to shape the world in his image, convinced that his reach was limitless, that no force could oppose his will. He built monuments to his own ego, silencing dissent and dismissing warnings. Yet what he failed to see was the unseen tide shifting beneath his feet. The people he ruled did not need to strike him down. They only needed to endure. In time, His own miscalculations turned against him. His trusted allies vanished. His fortress became a prison. When the walls finally gave way, it was not because of an enemy's attack, but because he had long since hollowed out the foundation with his own hands. His downfall was not a punishment. It was an equation balancing itself. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. A lion does not roar while it stalks. It does not need to. Its presence alone is enough to unsettle the ground beneath its prey. It moves with purpose, with patience, knowing that true power does not announce itself. It reveals itself at the appointed hour. In the same way, those who understand the weight of divine timing do not rush, do not scramble, do not waste their energy proving what is already destined. They remain still, unmoved, unshaken, and that stillness becomes their greatest strength. They mistook your quiet for weakness, never realizing that silence is a fortress built for the wise. While they fought for attention, clawed for control, and fumbled to maintain illusions, you remained steady. You did not need to argue, explain, or prove yourself, because truth does not beg to be seen. It simply is. And now, as their own reckless words entangle them, as their restless striving turns against them, they begin to understand. The battle was never about who spoke the loudest, but who endured the longest. The world teaches that power belongs to those who shout, to those who move first, to those who make themselves known. But real authority is not found in noise. It is found in mastery. And mastery is stillness. It is control. It is the unwavering confidence of one who knows that destiny does not need defending. Like deep waters, unmoved by surface winds, true strength is found beneath the surface, unshaken by the temporary storms above. They could not stand the silence because it exposed them. They needed the distraction, the chaos, the movement, because without it, they were forced to face themselves. And that was something they could not bear. They wanted a reaction, craved validation, but you gave them nothing. You let them exhaust themselves. Let them reveal their own weaknesses. Let them unravel under the weight of their own desperation. What they feared was never you. It was what your silence represented. It was the realization that no amount of manipulation, no amount of noise, no amount of force could shake what was already rooted. Stillness is not inaction. It is the pause before the flood, the space before the shift. It is the moment when the seeds planted in patience begin to take root, when the weight of destiny moves without warning, when the unseen forces of justice align in a way that no human hand can undo. They wanted movement, but they got silence. They wanted power, but they got stillness. And now, as the dust settles, as the weight of their own choices closes in, they realize too late that they were never in control to begin with. You did not need to move, because heaven was moving for you. You did not need to fight, because the battle was already won. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their own making, searching for a way out, they are met with the very silence they once mocked. The silence that was not weakness, but judgment. The silence that was not surrender, but strategy. The silence that was not emptiness, but power. And in that silence, the truth remains. Patience is the unseen hand that turns chaos into consequence. To wait is not to yield. It is to hold dominion over time itself. Each breath drawn without haste, each step taken without rush, is a silent defiance against recklessness. They mistook stillness for surrender, unaware that the most relentless forces move without sound. Their own mind becomes the battlefield, replaying their actions, searching for a response that never comes. They are no longer fighting an opponent. They are fighting their own choices, their own misjudgment. The very strategies they relied upon have become their shackles, binding them to the weight of their own miscalculations. What they feared was not retaliation. It was the realization that their downfall required no interference. The collapse was their own doing, their regrets inescapable. There is no undoing, no revision, only the echo of missteps that cannot be erased. While the quiet endures, they remain ensnared in the wreckage of their own design, haunted not by vengeance, but by the relentless presence of their own failure. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Genesis 4:7. A man may run from his shadow at high noon, but as the sun sets, that shadow stretches long behind him, a relentless reminder of what he cannot escape. Guilt is no different. It does not vanish because it is ignored, nor does it loosen its grip when pushed aside. It lingers, it waits, it finds its way into the quiet moments, whispering reminders of every wrong turn, every selfish act, every hidden betrayal. They thought they could outrun consequence, but consequence does not chase, it waits. It allows them to weave illusions, to convince themselves that time will erase what was done. But time does not erase, it reveals. They thought their actions had no weight, that their choices would sink unnoticed beneath the waves of distraction and denial. But the past is not a stone that can be thrown into the depths and forgotten. It is a tide that always returns, bringing with it the wreckage of everything they buried. The mind becomes the battlefield, regret clashing against justification, the truth hammering at the walls they built to contain it. They do not sleep peacefully, for silence is no longer a comfort. It is a mirror reflecting back what they tried so desperately to avoid. The reckoning does not come with a grand announcement. It comes in the quiet moments, in the pauses between thoughts, in the moments where there is no noise left to drown it out. There was no need to strike them down, no need to seek revenge. The weight of their own conscience has done what no enemy could. They are prisoners of their own making, shackled not by chains, but by the choices they refuse to own. They told themselves they could move forward untouched, but the past does not remain in the past when it has not been reckoned with. It follows, a shadow stretching longer with each passing day. The louder they spoke to silence their guilt, the more it took root in their spirit, growing like vines through the cracks of their carefully constructed facade. And now, there is nowhere left to run. Their world grows smaller, the walls close in, and no amount of distraction can quiet the truth. They are not haunted by you. They are haunted by themselves, by the things they did, by the things they failed to do, by the people they stepped on, by the bridges they burned, by the love they betrayed. The weight they carry is not one you placed upon them. It is one they built with their own hands, brick by brick, lie by lie, moment by moment. And so they sit in the ruins of their own making, hoping that somehow the weight will lift, that somehow they will find peace. But peace does not come to those who refuse to face the truth. It does not belong to those who twist their way out of accountability, who shift blame, who live in the illusion that their choices carry no cost. Peace belongs to those who acknowledge, who make right, who humble themselves before the weight of what they have done. But for them, that moment has not come. And until it does, their soul will remain restless, their mind a battlefield, their guilt an unshakable shadow. There is no undoing what has been done, only the choice to face it or to be consumed by it. And they are learning far too late that avoidance is not freedom. It is a prison of their own making. Endurance and time have always been the architects of justice. Those who rush to claim victory often fail to recognize the patience that dismantles illusions. Resilience is not about resistance alone. It is about allowing truth to unfold without force. The moment was never yours to chase. It was always moving toward you, aligning each misstep, each deception, until the weight of it all became unbearable. They mistook silence for surrender, unaware that stillness is the foundation of control. Their own desperation unraveled them long before intervention was necessary. There was no need to retaliate. They built their downfall with their own hands. The more they fought against inevitability, the more entangled they became in their own deceptions. Now, the realization is theirs to bear. Every attempt to rewrite the past is futile. The damage is irreversible. The consequences inescapable. What they once thought was their triumph was only the prelude to their reckoning. There is no need for vengeance when time has already ensured balance. The unravelling is complete, and the remnants of their schemes lay in ruins, a monument to their own arrogance. You never needed to strike. Their downfall was sealed the moment they underestimated what they could not control. This moment is not an ending. It is a beginning. The silence that once unsettled them now stands as proof of endurance, an unshakable force that remains unbroken. They spent so much time trying to dismantle what they feared that they never saw the inevitable shift taking place. But you did. The moment of revelation is not yours to enforce. It is theirs to suffer. There is no escape from the truth they tried to ignore. The weight of it drags them down, a reminder that some wounds are self-inflicted, and some endings are nothing more than long overdue consequences. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. A seed must break before it can bloom. A caterpillar must endure the darkness of the cocoon before it can spread its wings. A diamond is not formed in comfort, but under the crushing weight of the earth. Fire does not destroy gold, it refines it. And in the same way, the trials you faced were never meant to consume you. They were meant to shape you, to strip away what was weak, to burn off what no longer belonged. What you went through was not an ending. It was the beginning of something greater. They thought you were finished. They mistook your silence for surrender, your patience for passivity, your trials for defeat. They saw the storm rage around you and assumed you would fall. But while they panicked, while they fought against the inevitable, you stood firm. You understood something they did not. Some things must fall apart, so better things can rise. Every betrayal, every hardship, every moment where you felt like giving up, it was all leading here. The old version of you could not carry the weight of the calling ahead, so the fire had to come. The loss was not punishment, it was preparation. What you lost was never meant to stay. What remains is what was always meant to be. You were not buried, you were planted. Patience was never your weakness, it was your weapon. While others rushed, you waited. While they scrambled, you observed. While they tried to force what wasn't meant for them, you let destiny unfold in divine timing. You knew your moment was coming. Now the shift has arrived. The doors that once seemed locked are opening. The paths that once seemed impossible are clearing. The obstacles that once stood in your way are crumbling. Not because you forced them down, but because they were never strong enough to hold you back. There was never a need for vengeance. The weight of their own choices became their undoing. Their downfall was not orchestrated, it was earned. They believed they were in control, yet every decision they made only tightened the chains of their own ruin. Their arrogance blinded them, making them believe they could dictate the outcome. But the truth was always moving beyond their reach. There was no need to intervene. The inevitable required no interference. Now, as they struggle against the consequences they set in motion, you stand on the other side, unburdened, untouched, free. The power they once sought to wield now collapses beneath them, a monument to their miscalculations. Their reckoning was not a battle. It was a lesson they refused to learn until it was far too late. There is nothing left to prove. The world will witness the shift, not because you demand recognition, but because undeniable power speaks for itself. The story is not ending. It is only just beginning. Every attempt to break you only strengthened your foundation. Every lie spoken against you now serves as proof of how far you have risen beyond reach. No force can dim what was always meant to shine. There is no need to look back. What lies ahead is yours to claim. The past held its trials, but the future belongs to those who endured. The road forward is yours alone, and with every step, the echoes of the past fade further into oblivion. Nothing can stand in the way of what is already written. The shift has begun.